Hi, it's Jo from Minerva. Today I'm going to show you something a little bit different. We're going to have a look at trying to make some underwear. You might think that making underwear is a bit of a strange way to spend your sewing time when you could be making something that everyone can see on the outside, but it's a great way to use up little scraps of fabric. If you've used some art gallery fabric and you've got a little strip left over, it's really nice to make up some undies in that last little bit of material. The pattern that we're using today is a hipster style, so you will need some fabric, some elastic, a stretch needle, and all the products that I use will be listed below. Whatever you call them, pants, underpants, undies, knickers, they're the sort of sewing equivalent of snacking, because if you've only got a little bit of sewing time, you can create something really quickly and you can put it on and you think, wow, I've already made that. So they're a really good way to do small pockets of sewing. Pattern is by Wardrobe by Me, and it's called the Hipster Underpants, and it's got 3 different ways that you can make them. So although they're the same style, there's 3 different construction techniques. So there's one with lace elastic, there's one with fold over elastic, and View C has folded bands, which you make like a neckband. So I'm not going to do that one today because that's the same technique as putting a neckband on a t-shirt, but we're going to have a look at some pico elastic to do View A and some fold over elastic techniques for View B. The fabric I'm using today is a 4-way stretch, which is what you'll need for underwear. So it stretches this way and this way. It does have a greater direction of stretch in that plane, more than that way, but it's still good that way. If you have 1/2 metre, I've made 3 pairs of underwear from that one pattern, so 1/2 metre makes 3 pairs. You will also need some pico elastic for View A, some matching thread, some stretch needles, and some fold over elastic for View B. The fabric I'm using is quite a funky print. It's a sort of jungle one, but I thought it was quite fun, and it's the sort of piece that I would have left over from making a child's t-shirt or a child's sweatshirt, so it was quite a good way to use up the last little bit of fabric. If you're looking to sew male underwear, there's also a pattern for boxer shorts by Wardrobe by Me, which has elastic around the waist. A little about sizing. The Wardrobe by Me pattern comes in a range of sizes from 0 to 24. So I'm going to trace my pattern today because there's 3 women in our family who could use this pattern. So we're going to take our own sizes. I also like to make them as a little birthday present or Christmas present as well. I'm not going to do a full sew along, but there are a few tips to know when you're cutting out. I've traced off a pattern size because I might want to make them in different sizes, but there's a few markings that are very important to put on. So you need to make sure that the fold line is on, because that is the back piece and that needs to fold out into a back shape. And another line that you see on all lingerie and underwear patterns that have got stretch in is the direction of stretch. So this line here is showing that your fabric needs to have its widest stretch in this direction. So the fabric you choose needs to be a 4-way stretch. So when I cut out this piece of fabric for the back, I've got a directional print, so I need to have the birds the right way up. But this way is the way I've got the most stretch, and this way I've got a lot of stretch, but this is the greatest direction of stretch. The other thing that I've done when I've traced off the pattern is the pattern comes in 3 depths. So you can have a sort of boy short hipster, you can have a mid-rise one, or you can have a full rise one. So I've put lines for all of those. So I'm going to try making this and try it on and see if I like it. I'm going to try on this, and then I've got that full depth size if I wanted to make that another time. Okay, the pattern's traced, we're all cut out, we've got our elastics, it's time to start sewing. First, the machine setup. So I'm going to put in a stretch needle, and I love these hemline needles because the needle colour is on the top and it matches the code of what the needles are called. So a pink tipped sewing machine needle goes back in the pink stretch box, and here you'll see this example. Here's a packet of sharps and they've got green tops, so they go back into the green sharps packet if you only sew one item. I'm going to make my underwear on the sewing machine today, not an overlocker, because not everyone's got an overlocker, and I think it's important to show that you don't need an overlocker for everything. We're going to sew the front and the back pieces together along this seam. So you will need to, there's an element of stretch where you need to just make sure that you've got the fabric stretched along the full width. So, a bit tricky to see, I've done it in a darker colour on the back. So you can see it looks quite a wobbly line, but it still means that the fabric can stretch without the stitch line popping. So you get that element of stretch. If you're not getting enough stretch, you could just move your stitch length along a little bit. Okay, the next stage is to put the gusset liner on the underpants, and you need to match up the notches and pin it. The liner is a little bit smaller, so you will get a little bit of sort of pulling along there, but that helps when you sew it to make a curved shape. Now we're going to zigzag that on. I'm going to use a 3-stitch zigzag. So from the right side, you'll see that 3-step zigzag. And from the wrong side, you'll see that that's finished the edge and held it in place. Next, we're going to sew the undies right sides together along the side seams and finish those. And again, you need to make sure that you're just lining it up. If you've got to add a little stretch, add a little stretch. There we are, main part done, and now it's time to add the elastic. I'm going to use the lace edge elastic first. So you're going to sew the elastic with the straight edge against the straight edge, with the lace part facing down. So you've got right side to right side, and I'm going to sew as close to the lace as I can rather than to the edge. So I'm going to be doing a zigzag, my stretch stitch, the very long stretch stitch that looks like a straight stitch but is a little bit more wobbly. I'm going to be sewing that along that lace edge, and then we're going to put it through the sewing machine again. I'll just show you when I get the elastic started. So I've got my straight edge lined up, and I'm just going to give it a little stretch. I'm not going to have it at its max. I'm not going to put it on flat. I'm going to just give it a little bit of tension. And no pins. You want to make sure that the knicker material doesn't come past the elastic, because that will show. So you need it to be along that edge and just covering it over. And you need to overlap the two ends by about ½ inch. You don't need to fold them under or anything, you just sew them straight on top of each other. So this is what it looks like after the first pass. You've got the lace edge pointing down, and you can see where just stretching it a little has just gathered in the waistband. If we did it without stretch, it would look very flat, so we're getting a bit of shaping now. The next stage is to turn that elastic down, and then we're going to zigzag along this fabric edge here, and that's the second pass through the machine. Here we are. We're going to 3-stitch zigzag, keeping that little bit of tension that we had before. And you can see now why we sewed really close to the lace, because if we sewed on the flat side, when we flipped it over, we would see all that elastic. We only want to see the lace, so that's why you do the first pass very close to the lace. Okay, that's the waistband attached. You'll see from the inside you've got the 3-step zigzag, but you can't see any of the raw edges because they're flipped under. And from the front you'll see where we've still got that stretch, and that's where you'll have to experiment with your how tight to pull your elastic. Different elastics behave in different ways. You might get an elastic that you get a good tension on. It's a bit tight there, but there it's really good. And that's the join there, look, you'll see. So from the right side you've got those 2 elastics overlapped by 1 inch, but from the right side you can't see it, and from the wrong side it's all down flat. So you just got to do the same on the legs, and then you're finished. A second method you might want to try, it's not in this pattern, but you might find that you get a better leg tension with it, is just to sew the lace picot elastic straight onto the leg with the raw edge behind, because this fabric is 4-way stretch, it's not going to fray, so you can just sew it straight on. If you're going to do that, I recommend you have your matching grey thread on the top, and then you have some white thread as your bobbin, otherwise it can look a little bit messy on the inside. So if you change your bobbin to whatever colour the reverse of your fabric is, and then you just use a simple zigzag. So if your machine doesn't have a 3-step zigzag for doing the other one, you can just attach it on by zigzagging it. Again, you will need to just give it some stretch, but this way I'll show you what it looks like from the reverse. Okay, so you'll get an elastic leg a little bit more like the ones that you see ready to wear. You get loads more stretch, so I always use this method when I might make children's underwear, and you get that finish rather than just the picot edge. But you might find you like that more because your machine gives a better zigzag than it does a 3-step zigzag, or that you find that's more comfortable. Again, you just overlap the ends, but that is a really stretchy leg, and I think I get a better stretchy leg than if I use this turnover twice. So you'll have to experiment and see which method you find the most comfortable. It doesn't suggest it on this pattern, but I like to make a little bow, so I make 2 loops and make a bow. Cut the ends off at an angle. And then I'm just going to put that at the front. You can buy one. I've got a few here, look, pink one, yellow one, red one, green one. But any of those would finish off your underwear. Okay, the second method featured on the pattern is to use fold over elastic, and this has a sort of ridge down the middle of fold. I don't know if you can see. It has a fold down the middle so that you could fold the elastic in half. One side slightly more fuzzy than the other, that's the side you want against yourself, and you're going to fold it in half and you're going to sew it round the waist and the legs. And again, the more you make, the more you know which is more comfortable. So you might find you want fold over elastic on the waist and lace elastic on the legs because it's more stretchy, or you might like this round your legs because you don't want a lace rubbing your groin, and then you might have this one round the top. So you'll work out which ones are the most comfortable for you the more pairs that you make. Okay, there's a couple of different ways you can put on fold over elastic, and you'll find the one that you're best at putting on. So the first way is to attach one side of the elastic on the first pass and then zigzag on the second pass. So it's just temporary really, but it's still stretchy. It's a temporary sort of basting stitch. So you attach the fold over elastic to the underwear, wrong side to wrong side, and then you're able to use the groove to fold down, and then you can put your zigzag or three-step zigzag on top for the second pass. There we are. That's a fold over elastic waistband. It does feel a little bit firmer and it doesn't give it quite the same shaping, so if you need a wider shaping around the waist, that's quite a good method. The second method of fold over elastic is simply, if you're confident under the machine, is to simply fold and sew as you go. So you can just add a straight stretch stitch and just keep moving along, making sure that your fabric gets to that fold line in the middle. And you can handle a little bit more, you can get a bit more tension that way, but you do run the risk of this fabric slipping out and you getting a little hole like that. So you do need to go slowly if you're doing that method and not just try and whiz around the legs. Okay, here's two finished pairs. These fold over ones I cut on the lower rise, so they've got more of a sort of the hipster boyfriend style, and those have got the fold over elastic. And then this is the taller style. So this has got the one pass elastic on the legs, which is very stretchy, and the two pass elastic on the waist, which is very neat. So you might want to experiment with that. There's also a set with fold over bands, so you could also try that if you knew the neckband technique for putting strips of fabric on in quarters. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of technique and skill to have a go at making some of your own underwear. It really is great fun once you get going. All the products we've used are listed below. If you've made some underwear, don't forget to share that on Minerva. You don't have to model it. We just quite like to see nice, pretty fabric choices. Thanks for watching. I hope you've learned a little bit about applying elastics. You can also use that technique in other things, but it's particularly useful when you're making underwear. If you have any questions, you can leave those below. If you've got any tips because you've made underwear yourself, that would be great. You can share those in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.